There isn't a direct, simple translation of Mono no Aware, as is typical of Japanese terms and sayings. Literally, it means the are-ness of things, which doesn't exactly convey the sentiment behind it. Instead, it's often translated as the pathos of things, an empathy for things, and a sensitivity to ephemera. The latter, I feel, capturing the essence of what the saying means more than the others. Mono no Aware refers to the awareness of, and the resulting sadness from, transience, the inherent mortality of all that we see. The knowledge that the world around us and everything in it, the people we love, the hobbies we enjoy, the food we eat, will all one day die, makes us appreciate them all that much more. But, admittedly, does little to ease the inevitable mourning. It is a melancholic duty that we're all called to serve. To watch life and cry its fleeting beauty as it dies and fades into our memory, which itself will one day wither and slip through our fingers. Perhaps understandably, it's something that causes a great deal of people a great deal of anxiety, as do most things regarding death. You could almost say it's human. The fear of losing yourself and what you have. It's something that predates all history but has stuck with us up to the present day. Which means we've had plenty of time to ponder and dwell on the concepts of loss and death. And what better way to explore abstract ideas like these than through stories? And what kind of stories are more suited to exploring loss and death than apocalyptica? Yokohama Kaidashi Kikō, which can be translated to English as Record of a Yokohama Shopping Trip, is a manga which, along with its two adaptational OVA duologies, has never been officially released in English. At least, not as of the recording of this video, and that is an absolute crime. Yokohama takes place years into the future on a post-cataclysmic Earth where humanity is on its last legs and very much aware it is staring down its own extinction. The series follows Alpha, an android who runs a coffee shop by herself, her human owner on a trip of indefinite length. Immortal, unchanging, endless. She spends many of her days alone, barring the time when a customer or two wanders in, or when she bumps into someone on one of her many shopping trips. I suppose in a depressing, cynical way, you could classify Yokohama as a tragedy. In the aftermath of a disaster that isn't explained, but hinted to be the result of runaway climate change, civilization on a global and national level has all but collapsed as the rising waters encroach, swallowing the world that once was. And even disregarding the setting, I don't think I'd blame anyone for finding just the series and its themes upsetting. However, it's only the confronting of its upsetting nature that allows Yokohama to be as beautiful as it is. In Chapter 5, Alpha notes that, although the differences between the seasons aren't as noticeable as they once were, that only makes the few that are still there that much more special. In Chapter 12, she goes to take a picture of the sunset at the perfect spot to immortalize it, but finds herself so caught up in the moment, she misses her chance. These are small instances, but they feed into the overarching theme of always living in the moment. Every second, we're losing the opportunity to take in something that won't be here tomorrow. Don't agonize over the fact that it will be gone someday. Otherwise, you'll miss your chance to simply appreciate a beautiful thing. As the world turns, we lose the opportunity to make certain memories, while gaining the chance to make others. The surviving humans have lost the world they once called home. Alpha will never know the sights, the wonders they saw, outside of second-hand sources. All of this has served to strengthen their appreciation of the now, rather than cause them to simply mourn all that has been lost. The apocalypse has made them appreciate what little is left more than ever. If that's the mindset that humanity has to die in, then I'd call that a death worth living for. So, we've established that beauty and comfort is something that can be found even as a consequence of the apocalypse. But what about something a little more traditional? What about finding joy and relief not because of the apocalypse, but in spite of it? And that question leads us to our next series, Girls' Last Tour. Like Yokohama, Girls' Last Tour is a post-apocalyptic slice of life, though the setting is far more traditionally apocalyptic than the former series. It follows the lives of two young girls, Chito, or Chi, and Yuri, or Yu, as they navigate the ruins of a multi-layered city in their Kettenkrad. Similar to Yokohama, the exact nature of the disaster that ravaged the world isn't really made clear, though in this case it's implied to be some kind of war. In any case, it means their lives consist of simply driving forward and living day to day looking for food, fresh water, shelter, and looking at whatever weird shit they happen to stumble across. There's a vague goal of getting to the top level, but it's more of a loose target than a concrete objective, and yeah, that's about it, in terms of plot at least. One thing that separates Girls' Last Tour from Yokohama though is how it handles its characters, which ends up affecting how it handles its themes quite a bit. Like Alpha, Chi and Yu are far too young to know anything about the world prior to its downfall, but unlike her, they also don't know anyone who does. Most of the time, they're entirely in their own company, and the few people they bump into often don't know much more, or if they do, they don't feel the need to talk about it. Our protagonists have little stake in the old world, and at times seem confused by the mere concept of things like war, religion, sugar. Rather than being defined by their connections to the past, Chi and Yu live firmly in the present. The tone too is a little less romantic, and this extends to the characters, who act and talk a bit more low-key and humdrum. Chi is the straight man, learned, or as much as she can be, responsible, down-to-earth, and intellectual, knowing the most about the old world of the two. And Yu, I can only describe as a smart-ass chaos gremlin? I mean, she just kind of fucks around, leaving work to others, is constantly vomiting the top posts from r/shower thoughts, points a gun at Chi and pretends to threaten her for food as a joke, blows up part of the city. Look, I said low-key, not normal, alright? Just fuck it, forget it. Let's move on. Yeah, like I was saying, Girls' Last Tour concerns itself not just with the past world that was lost, but also the world that exists now. Which, yes, is a ruinous, sparsely populated wasteland, that much is clear. But that makes the brief, sporadic interludes of calm beauty all that more apparent, and there is a difference between these moments and the similar moments of Yokohama. Whereas Yokohama's moments are more about reflection, the somber enjoyment of memories, a funeral-esque remembrance, Girls' Last Tour's moments are about finding present joy, peace, and happiness now that aren't rooted solely in the past. The girls keep going because what else is there to do? There's the option of just staying where you are and drowning in memories, fantasies about what the past might be. But to indulge in that too long, they risk not only becoming a fixture of the city, but dying with it. It's a philosophy espoused by Ishii, an engineer the girls meet in episode 6, building a plane to try and fly off to a city she can see in the distance. Finding herself in an aerodrome bursting with blueprints dating back to the beginning of aviation, she sees this meticulous record of the past, and rather than just melancholically staring in awe at it, takes it and uses it to improve her life in the present, even with the knowledge that she might be the last pilot in human history. Even knowing that there's a good chance she'll fail and even die, she keeps going anyway. She doesn't run from the hopelessness of her situation. Rather, she takes it on the chin and just keeps on going. In episode 8, the girls come across what is basically a museum/cemetery, a field filled with countless files, all labelled with a person's name and containing a single item they chose to represent them after they died. And though Yu at first nicks everything she can get her hands on, Chi forces her to return them. There's the obvious message that objects are given meaning by their owners, who, in owning them, put themselves in their items, which act as ways for future generations to remember them. But then Yu pulls out their camera, given as a gift by a man they met, Kanazawa, and points out that while the camera acts as a way for them to remember him, there's no way of knowing where he is now, if he's even still alive. There's the surface-level, tragic, mono-no-aware reading of this, but digging into my personal interpretation for a moment, I think what Yu is saying is actually more of a comfort. The last lingering memory of Kanazawa they have is him giving them a gift, hope in his eyes as he embarks on a new map-making adventure. That's the last impression they have of him, and the one that will stick with them the longest. The last they knew, and the last they'll ever know, is that he was doing fine. And it's the comfort of that knowledge that will allow them to keep moving forward with no reason to worry about someone from their past. All of this actually has the effect of giving the series a more hopeful, optimistic tone than Yokohama, despite the more traditionally apocalyptic setting. Watching these episodes, it's honestly hard not to enjoy the simplicity of them, waking up, bantering as they go about their day, occasionally bumping into someone, saying goodbye, and starting all over again. It's a reminder that even in the toughest of times, even when things are absolutely hopeless and all that's great about man has gone, there's no reason not to pick yourself up and keep going anyway. Because hey, you're still alive, and you might as well keep going. Because what else is there, eh? What else is there?
I'm a god.
Up to this point, however, the two series I've been talking about have both been ones that are, by design, meant to invoke these kinds of feelings in you. They're meant to make you feel nostalgic and warm in spite of, and even because of, the apocalyptic setting. And that's great, that's interesting. After all, I managed to squeeze 12 minutes out of them. But I think it would be a bit more interesting to close on a series that doesn't explicitly go for this type of tone, and yet still manages to evoke these same feelings. And if you're a returning viewer, it might be one you're familiar with. Back in January? It's already been that long? Oh, fuck. Back in January, during my video about world-driven storytelling, I mentioned one of my favourite manga, Blam, using it as an example of a world-driven story, and during a description of its world, accidentally preempted my using it in this video. I described Blam City as giving me an odd melancholia, that it gave me a mournful sense of wonderment. There's this vague feeling of sadness at seeing such dilapidation, but there's also this feeling of awe, like even after thousands of years, you can still get a sense for the power this place once held, and in some ways still does hold. A core tenet of Blam, and indeed much of Tetsuo Nihei's work, is a focus on environmental storytelling. Panels and pages go by without words being said, leaving us to focus on nothing but these beautifully realized apocalyptic compositions. Because works like Blam or Apozyms are either set terrifyingly far into the future or just on completely different worlds, there's less of a personal sense of depressing nostalgia at having lost something. And there's less of a message of finding moments of humanity and joy post-cataclysm, though neither are absent. For me, what the city of Blam gives is a more simple, abstract sense of beauty. The twisted metal making up the endless skyline is simply by itself a work of art. We don't need to explain why sweeping valleys and expansive waterfalls are beautiful, they just are. Perhaps there is more of a sense of Mono no Aware than initially thought. Perhaps, even though this is a world almost completely alien to our own, maybe finding a haunting enchantment in death is a universal effect, no matter the context, no matter the time. Maybe it's an instinctual thing. Maybe, after all this time, we still feel more at home in an environment of danger, of chaos. Or maybe it's a sign of how far we've evolved, that we can look at this urban corpse and see it as art, that we're able to find such meaning in the natural phenomenon of decomposition that we're meant to fear. Life is a beautiful, miraculous thing. Maybe it stands to reason that death, too, can be just as breathtaking. Or maybe I'm just weird. I don't know. I think that's a very good possibility. Death, after all, is something we're programmed to avoid, to fear, to delay, not to observe, to appreciate, to admire. Just to be clear, I'm not glamorizing death, or at least I hope I've not been doing that, and I'm definitely not advocating we burn civilization to the ground to fulfill some made-up apocalypse core aesthetic. No, Wait a minute. Oh my god, it's an actual thing. Jesus Christ. Oh, what's this? Solar punk, huh? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, death. I can certainly attest to the fact that I don't really want to die right now, and reading stories like the ones I've covered hasn't changed that much. I don't want to die. I don't want the people and the things I love to die. But these stories, Yokohama, Girls Last Tour, Blam, others, they've helped me come to terms with the fact that we will die. Death is the great equalizer. It comes for us all, one way or another, or at least for now. Maybe in a few decades or centuries we'll figure out how to use stem cells or cybernetics or mind uploading to eliminate death, and videos like these will have no meaning anymore. But would we even want that? The tragedy of Mono no Aware, the tragedy that comes with an apocalypse, they aren't like this because death and destruction are bad things on their own. They're tragedies because of the life that comes before them. The beauty of something like Mono no Aware isn't the passing itself, it's what's lost. It is life that gives death the power it has over all of us as we struggle and claw to avoid it. And likewise, it is death that makes us cling to life for as long as we can, savoring every moment that passes. Death will come to every person, to every city, every country, every world, and chances are it will be hard. It will make us mourn, it will make us grieve, but it doesn't have to make us scared. We can look death in the face and go smiling, sad that our lives are over, but glad they happened anyway. We can look death in the face and keep going regardless, crawl forward that little bit more, continuing to find reasons to keep living despite the loss around us, like flowers poking through concrete. We can look death in the face and just stare at it, understand it, connect with it, let it become and mean something else, find beauty in the twisted landscapes it leaves in its wake. I suppose the only thing I can really say now to cap this off is just enjoy yourself. I hope things are going well for you, and if not, then I hope they get better, because we all deserve to have the ability, the opportunity to live our lives. I hope you get that chance, and live your life as best as you can, through love and heartbreak, loss and warmth, joy and sadness, so that when you are on your deathbed, about to slip away from everything you love, the only thing you can think is, wasn't it amazing that I got to be born? If you'd like to see an in-depth director's commentary on this video and others like it, as well as receive a credit in the future, then be sure to pledge to my Patreon, link in the description. If not, then like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.